So aside from light, the other factor that people can easily get wrong with indoor plants is the watering of those plants. Watering probably is the area that people make the most mistakes when it comes to indoor plants. So we want to make sure we get this right, and we also want to avoid watering on a schedule. So in other words, if you're like, well, you know, maybe I water once every 10 days, or I water once every 2 weeks, or 3 weeks. We want to avoid that and water when the plant needs to be watered. We also want to take in consideration factors like light. And if you could see, today's a very sunny day. And a plant like this is going to use more water on a sunny day than it would if the weather is dark and overcast. So that can change easily how often you water your plant. Another factor you want to consider when you're watering your plant is the type of plant. And there are some plants that are lower water plants. And an easy way to find out if it's low water or a high water plant is feel the leaves. And some plants, like a Sansevieria, as an example, snake plant, the leaves are very thick and waxy. And when you have thick, waxy leaves, or something like a cactus where it's just a thick, waxy stem, those are plants that are low water plants. And so we don't water them until the soil gets completely dry. Then there's other plants that have a very soft leaf. And when you feel it, these leaves are kind of soft, but they're also a little thick. A plant like a peace lily is the best example of a high water plant. And anyone who's ever taken care of a peace lily has probably seen it droop when it gets dry. Now, fortunately, when you water, it will come right back up. But peace lily is a plant that likes it more on the wet side. And so those plants, we're not going to let them dry out completely. Ferns are another great example of higher water plants. The leaves are very soft, kind of almost like tissue, and they just go through their water really, really fast. This Aglaonema is kind of in between. It's actually, a little bit on the lower side of water, but we want to avoid overwatering our plants. That's probably the biggest single mistake people make, is they overwater the plant. And the reason why that's bad is that the plant, of course, needs water. But the roots also need air. They need oxygen. And when they're sitting in water all the time, or you flood the drainage saucer and it's just sitting in that water, those roots rot because there's no oxygen available. The roots rot, they're now dying, and now they can't feed the rest of the plant the way they should. So we want to be careful about that. And before we water the plant, we want to take in consideration the environment. Also, is it hot out? Plants are going to go through water faster if it's hot than if it's cold. If it's brighter, we're going to water more often. If it's darker, we're going to water less often. The type of plant we have. And then most importantly, what does it have in the soil right now? Does it already have water in the soil or not? What I've got right here is a moisture meter. And this is going to tell me on a scale of 1 to 10 if the soil is wet, moist, or dry. And the way to use this is we're just going to go ahead and lift our plant back here, pull the leaves back, and then we're just going to stick this right into the soil. And you can see that this plant is on the dry side. And we want this meter to go down pretty far because we're interested in what the soil moisture is like in the bottom. The top of the plant doesn't matter. It could be dry up on the top of the soil, but down below, there might be plenty of moisture down there. So avoid just using your finger to check. Instead, get something like one of these moisture meters. You can get them online, very easy to get, very inexpensive. They're probably maybe $10, if that, and they're definitely worth their while. And if you have smaller plants, or if you don't have a moisture meter, one other way of checking is to just simply lift the plant out of its pot. And so you can just simply lift it and feel how heavy or light it is. It's not a great way to check, but if it's really light, then that soil is definitely dry. The other method is a soil probe, and I don't have a soil probe with me, but a soil probe is like a plastic or metal stick, and it has little notches in it, and you put it into the soil, and then you turn it and you pull it out. And it can be a little messy, but as professionals, that's what we use all the time is a soil probe. A lot of times garden centers don't have soil probes. More often than not, they're going to have a moisture meter. So a moisture meter is more likely what you'll end up using to check the soil moisture. And then to actually water the plant, so I'm going to pull this out just so you can see everything and how I'm going to go about watering it. So I've now unstaged this plant. I'm going to put the drainage saucer on the bottom like that. I always want to have that drainage saucer because when we water the plant, we want water to just start trickling out of those drainage holes. And if we add too much water, and this is going to happen sooner or later, and the saucer starts filling up with water, we've all made that mistake, we want to see, okay, is there water down there or not? A lot of times we don't know, especially in, when the plant is staged. What you can do, you can use really cheap things to figure out if there's water down there or not. These are just cheap little wooden dowels. I think I got 100 of these for $1, maybe. Very inexpensive. But what you can do is when the plant is still staged, you can put this down in between the grow pot and the decorative container, down to the bottom, and then you can pull it back out and see if there's a watermark on there or not. There's other ways of doing it as well. You could also, this is a little more fancy, this is just a hollow plastic tube. What you can do with this is you can, again, just stick it back down in there, and then use it like a straw, put your finger on the top once it's at the bottom, and then lift it out, and then you'll see water in here if there's standing water in that saucer. And then to let that water back out, you just release it. You just take your finger off the top. So what do you do if you have water in the saucer? Well, what you don't want to do is leave it in there. If it's just a little amount, like maybe 1/4 of an inch or less, okay, fine, you can leave that. But if it's any more than that, you want to take that water out. Now, how do you do that? If it's a really small plant, you could always just take the plant out. Then your decorative mulch is going to go flying everywhere, but you could just take it and just dump it out. That's one way of getting rid of it. But I'm going to show you another way. You could use a turkey baster, or you could use one of these little hand pumps. You can get these online. They're very inexpensive. They're less than $10. And what you would do is you would put this down into the saucer itself, and then you would squeeze, and it would pump that water out, and you just pump it into a watering can or whatever to get that water out. But real important, we don't want the plant sitting in that water. And you'll see why when we water the plant, why it's so easy to get water down into that drainage saucer.